Hello and welcome to the Cameo Show. I'm your host, Cameo. We are joined by my husband and co-host, Greg Braun.
So glad to be here.
Greg starts with a dad joke, and I know he has one today because he's holding a book.
This is very special to me. Amy, one of our listeners, sent this to us. And so I'm going to read one from the dad joke book.
I think that's amazing. Thank you, Amy.
Yes.
The dad jokes are appreciated.
Yes.
It's awesome.
So why don't eggs tell jokes?
Something about cracking up.
Yeah, because they'd crack each other up.
What does that say about me that I know the answer to dad jokes?
That they're basic.
And I'm basic.
No.
You're calling me basic?
That you get it.
Okay, yes. I get the humor.
You get the humor.
Does that mean that I'm
It means you're really smart.
Okay, we'll take that.
And seriously, though, thank you, Amy. This is really cool. Really appreciate you thinking of us.
Yeah, very cool. That's our first gift.
You know, the doorbell rings. You're thinking, what is this?
What
I didn't order this
on Amazon?
So
Yeah, very cool. Can we talk about opinions today?
let's do it.
I can't even believe I'm saying this. It's so annoying, but I'm going to say something that's true.
Okay. Uh-oh.
That opinions, and you've all heard this before.
Here we go.
Okay. Opinions are like
Yep.
assholes. Everybody has one, right?
Okay.
Here's something else that's true. You don't have to be an asshole to express your opinion.
To have your opinion.
Right. You can have an opinion and not be an asshole.
Yeah.
You
But that's
probably
hard
have
to do. That's hard to do.
Obviously, it's opinions, and whether someone is an asshole is a subjective, opinion in and of itself.
Yeah.
But what makes someone an asshole? Is it that they think something differently than you? Valid. Or is it their delivery? Because that's what I'm saying. The true statement is you don't have to be an asshole to express your opinion. I think that has to do everything with the delivery, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think if you feel like you're not heard, you talk louder. You know what I mean? Like, just from a more rogue standpoint, So if people don't feel seen, heard, believed in, or that they're not validated, I guess, then there's this primal need to be more aggressive, to be, just think about if you don't feel like the kids are listening to you, or I'm listening to you, or, if you've got, customer situation, your natural instinct is, well, I'm just going to talk louder and be more aggressive and,
Yeah, but that poses the next question, which is being a little bit more dominant in a conversation, especially about something when maybe you have different opinions, also doesn't mean you have to be an asshole.
Yeah.
You're right. Sometimes I do get louder.
Yeah.
For example, with the kids. But I'm not really being an asshole. I'm just trying to be heard.
Yeah, you're trying to be heard, but you're coming across
as an asshole,
as aggressive. I'm just not just picking on you, but
no, I know.
I'm just saying that's a great example of what we're talking about, is that your motive and your mission is you're not just being a jerk to be a jerk. It's just coming across that way when it's coming in with so much heat, when really just you want everyone to be safe and eat healthy and, whatever mom thing you're trying to get done that day, or whatever the agenda is for that at that time.
Yeah, but often that necessarily isn't my opinion. That's more of an authoritative thing when you're a mom. Yeah. But when you're having a conversation with a friend, for example, and you're talking about the 3 things you're not supposed to talk about if you want to have a non-conflict life,
which are
politics, religion, and
I don't know the third.
I don't either. I made up that there were 3. There's only 2. Politics
There's
and
2
religion.
for sure.
There's definitely those. There's probably a third, maybe even a couple more, but those 2 for sure. So you're just having a conversation with a friend about one of those 2 things, especially right now because it's election season.
Yeah.
And you have different opinions. I don't have a problem or feel the need to be louder or dominant in a conversation that is sharing respectfully different opinions. Now, I might my body might take over and I might automatically get a little bit more like involved and
Yeah.
louder or aggressive. But like, I also don't think that that makes me an asshole. I think what makes people an asshole in that situation is when you start like being rude and name calling and doing like things that are asshole things. And that's what I'm saying is like,
Yeah.
you can share your opinion and not be a jerk.
Yeah.
And I just wonder if everybody knows that is what I, it's like the real question. It's like, do people realize that you can confidently and assertively state what you think about something, and it likely has nothing to do with anyone. Like it's all judgment, right?
Yeah.
And not do it in a way that makes someone feel bad.
Well, the problem with all of this is a lot of times it's about these sensitive things. And so the conversation always starts with a joke or some friendly banter. But then, unfortunately, I've been in situations, you've been in situations, we've probably all experienced where like you say something just a little too triggering and just all hell breaks loose. And you're just like, I didn't see that coming,
Yeah.
like what the hell? And again, when we're talking about these types of things, we're not talking about logic and data and facts. It's more opinion, guilt, emotion, what I was raised like, like the house I was raised in, what my parents pounded in my head for the formative 18 years that I was with them. My first tribe taught me to be this way. So anything outside of that's uncomfortable, like a lot of this stuff is like programming that we're talking, but it's hard to not converse, especially when people are different than you or have different opinions. It's hard to have conversations that don't kind of go sideways if you're not very careful. It's a very delicate thing, It's not something that you can just roguely throw around, because it's literally what people deeply believe about things that are opinions,
I think about it and I wonder, like, as you say all of that and I'm listening to you, I really am curious and I'm being genuine with this question. Like, isn't that all my perspective though? Like, you could say something very gently, very kind. And if it is triggering to me, or if it is different than what I believe or has been pounded in my head or whatever the case may be, I might interpret that you're being an asshole when in fact you aren't. So I guess
just by being different.
Just by being different. I feel like that's different. I don't feel like that has anything to do with the person who's like expressing their opinion. I have been on the side many times. I tend to be a little bit more outspoken, a little more bold, a little more rogue than you do. You're a little bit more reserved than I. If you ask any of our friends or family, I'm sure they would all agree with that, and that's probably putting it lightly. There are times when I say things just because I tend to be a little bit more bold or direct that I don't mean to be an asshole.
Mm.
I'm not saying it to be mean or put anyone down. In fact, I'm just kind of like very illogical sometimes about how I deliver things. There's no fat. There's sometimes lack of compassion.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make me an asshole? Does that make me a jerk? Or is that like an interpretation where like it's a different emotional response to how I'm saying it? Because what I mean is like, I don't think that you have to be put in that category just by having a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
I don't think everyone who thinks differently than me is an asshole. I think people who talk down to me or are so hell-bent on convincing me of one thing or the other, or make me feel a certain, what's the word I'm looking for? Make you feel attacked.
Mm-hmm.
That's what I mean. Like, that's just someone who behaves like a jerk. That is an asshole. Their opinion at that point means nothing, because I can't trust that anything that you're saying has any validity because of the way that you're delivering it. But I don't think that just because someone is like a little more direct or thinks differently than me that they automatically go in that category.
Yeah.
And I think that like that's the whole conversation. Who's it on?
Yeah. It's all perspective. And you have to understand like who you're talking to. You have to know your audience.
Mm-hmm.
And so my personal opinion about the situation, when you say you might be more reserved, more laid back about it, is that I don't really feel like anyone, I just try to stay away from things.
What do you mean?
I just try to stay away from things as I'm getting older and more aware of my finite time on this rock that's spinning through space at a very high rate of speed. I don't have a lot of time left. Is the reality? Time goes so quick. I mean, I'm 46.
Yeah.
And I feel 18, but I'm really 46.
And if you're lucky, you're halfway through your
Yeah.
life expectancy or a little more. I mean,
Yeah.
you're right.
So and I don't want to sound like a hippy dippy here, but it's like, I don't want to like bring up differences so much as like, I personally try to find like similarities, because there's no problem at all if we're all 10 people in a room, we're all the same. We all have the same vibe, the same energy, but you insert one person in the room that has a very big mouth, big opinion that's different than the other 10, there's going to be conflict.
I agree.
You know what I'm saying?
I agree. But I will challenge you on that thinking as you say that, because you could have 10 people who all think the same thing,
Mm-hmm.
and somebody's still an asshole. I'm trying to differentiate between like if having a difference of opinion automatically makes you an asshole, or if that's in the eye of the recipient of that different opinion, or if it's all about the delivery. Because I just think if you are a jerk, if you are aggressive, if you are degrading of people, it doesn't matter if you agree with them or not. You are just a jerk. Like you are just that type of personality. And that those are two separate things, that it is possible to have a difference of opinion and to respect and learn from each other. To your point, it is also possible, not easy, notice, but possible to decide that like, I don't have to have an opinion about everything.
And that is a choice.
Yes.
And that is a powerful choice that I have learned and implemented into my life. And it's saved me a lot of trouble, because at the end of the day, a lot of times it doesn't matter. I've had situations recently where I could have been right, and I know I was right.
Mm-hmm.
And I fact checked it. And I referenced a couple professionals, and I think a lot of times I get, the dumb one, just because I didn't get good grades or whatever, just kind of like the goofball. But I was right about something financial that was like a big thing. And I had a choice to either be right and be an asshole, because it would have been upsetting to the person, because I was basically proving them wrong. The data was incorrect that they were giving me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, actually, here's how this is. But I chose just to let that moment go, let them think that they were right, and not bring it up again, because it didn't matter. It didn't matter, and it doesn't matter. And I guess knowing the situations, like if my kids, back to the kids thing, if it's something like, hey, you got to brush your teeth, or hey, you got to hygiene, or what, just things that are important to life, then you got to like be assertive about that stuff, or safety.
Yeah.
But like if it's between friends or, a spouse, sometimes it's better to not be right, and just to, in the spirit of us, in the spirit of the friendship. You know what I'm saying? And I know that's more of a me way of living life and less of a natural thing for you.
Well, I just feel like I can handle if you are giving me your opinion, or you're telling me that I'm wrong and you're doing it with the right delivery.
Mm-hmm. Well, the other thing about this, great, but also you have to be fair here. You could have been a professional litigator in a courtroom, and in fact, you enjoy a good
Tread lightly here.
Well, you enjoy a good
debate, conversation.
You
do.
enjoy a good intelligent, back and forth. It's what we're talking about is like when that turns into the next phase of I don't feel heard, I feel disrespected, and sometimes things start friendly and nice, but one thing is said, and then it's one name is called, and then it's and I'm just saying, I just like to live my life like I'm not even gonna get involved with that again, I'm in a room of 20 people, and all of them around the table think that 4 + 4 is 10. Okay.
I can see what you're saying.
Yeah.
And that's because you're, in my opinion, you're not an asshole.
About
And
that.
well, yeah, depends on what we're talking about. But I also think that that can be dangerous if you are having a conversation with someone that you respect, that's your friend, that you're trying to learn from, that you are, engaging in some maybe difference of opinion,
Mhm.
and that you don't feel that it's safe to share your thoughts or to maybe share some facts that correct
Mhm.
someone who might be misunderstanding. We'll not use the word wrong because that's sensitive, but they might misunderstand, and you're trying to help them understand things differently. I think it's unfortunate that you, and this is my opinion, I think it's unfortunate that you feel like that that's not safe for you to do,
Yes.
because I feel like that's dangerous to just let people go on believing what they want to believe if the respect is mutual and learning from each other. I feel like, for example, when it's a room full of acquaintances or even strangers and people are just spouting off and saying whatever they want, and it's like, meh, it doesn't really matter, and it doesn't matter what I say, it doesn't matter what I think, I'm probably never going to see this person again, or maybe in this situation it's better to just let them believe because whatever they're believing is inconsequential. Fine, that's easier. But I think that like there should be some type of ability to communicate with people that you are close to, that you value their opinion and would hope that they value yours, where it doesn't turn into a battle where someone is being a jerk. And that's what I'm saying, is that there should be this level of safety in having a conversation where I can have an opinion and that doesn't make me an asshole. It just makes me see things differently than you. And so it's either in the perception of what I'm saying or the feeling that it makes you feel that I have a different opinion, or in my delivery, one or the other. But the statement of like being able to have an opinion and not be an asshole is a neutral statement. That to me is true.
Yeah. And again, I think it just, to answer your question, it comes down to knowing your audience.
Yeah.
So
Back to that.
if I'm around people that I have to work with, or they're friends that I care about, or like fellow musicians, or what, just whoever, I got to know like that this cannot be something that is a wedge between it, or you don't care about the relationship, or you care more about being heard, being right, than you do about the relationship. That's the sad, that's really it, is that you see that every day. And the world around us is like, I think people care more about being heard and being right. To hell with this friendship that I've had for 20 years. In this one argument, I got to get, because I'm so pissed off about whatever. That's what I'm saying, is knowing like this is not as important as the big picture.
Yeah.
But we're humans and we're driven by emotion, and we feel like I got to say all this stuff. But
Yeah. I can see what you're saying. And we've had this conversation privately before, and I'm going to spin this again. We differ here. Our opinions differ
Yeah.
here a little bit. I often feel like when I think about this myself, and I don't know if you ever think about this like I do. Why is it my responsibility though to carry the torch of like making sure nobody feels conflict? And I say that because you engage with a lot of different people, and especially ones that you're close with. Why is it your responsibility to keep the peace by, I don't want to say backing down, because then that sounds confrontational.
that's how you see it though.
Well,
Right.
I do see it that way in a lot of cases, because it seems like, again, backing down has a negative connotation. But if I just simply say, I don't understand how you feel that way, or I see things differently, especially when it's like factual information to like delineate right and wrong, right?
Sure.
I mean, that's
and
even
how
more
good does it
complicated.
feel to be right?
Well, but
you know?
also isn't it more of a responsibility to like
Correct them?
not correct them, but show up in a way that's like authentic to what you believe versus just stepping away and letting them believe that they're right? Like, why is that my responsibility?
Because it's
is
not
what
your
I think
responsibility
about.
to change people's mind, and especially if they didn't ask for it.
Well, and I'm not talking about changing people's mind. I'm talking about the ability to safely express what I think that's different without being shut down, without being called an asshole, without.
Did they ask you though?
Well, if you know your audience and you're having a respectful conversation, then like, yeah, they would.
Most of the time, people don't ask you.
Most of the time,
You
people
find
just
yourself in a
want to tell you what
situation,
they think.
they're talking, it brings up an idea, and you want to say what you know. That's usually what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
So nobody's asking, like, what do you think about the matter? You know? And if they do, then great. But I'm just saying, like, as people, we love to, like, get involved and say what we know because it feels good. And I'm just saying, it's better to lose a couple battles and win the war. And the war in this situation is maintaining the friendship or maintaining happiness in your life. And sometimes that means just not being around that person, or that's all I'm saying is like, it's not worth getting in altercations to me.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that I'm like walking around trying to argue with everybody. And you say that like I could be a professional litigator, and I do enjoy a good debate or a good conversation. And when I am mad and I argue, I'm good at that. But
You win.
But what I'm saying is, I'm not trying to win. That is not what I'm saying in this conversation. What I'm saying is that I may not agree with someone.
Mm-hmm.
They may be right. They may be wrong. That doesn't make them an asshole. If they are saying it to me in a way that is rude or degrading or aggressive, and not just like get excited and want to be heard, raise your voice, aggressive, but like in an aggressive way that's attacking, that makes somebody.
Okay. Yeah.
But if someone is telling me something that maybe I don't agree with, that doesn't make them an asshole or a jerk. That just means that they see things differently than me.
Yeah. The whole thing is, I guess, seeing the issue before it becomes an issue is how I look at this. Is like, some things just aren't worth it. This is hard to do, but just knowing that people have so many different opinions than you, and you might be wrong about stuff, but they might be, right. But being okay with that, and that you don't have to change anyone's opinion about the world. It's hard to do, but it's very healthy from a keeping the peace standpoint, because it's a lot of times not you. We're not talking about you, that you have a problem. It's a lot of times just knowing that every single person you come in contact with is a highly emotional, highly biased, highly opinionated, not factual and logical like they might think they are. We think we're just so full of intelligence and logic, but
I think I'm full of intelligence and logic.
But no, that's not the case. It's not the case at all. And you're programmed from birth to be a certain way.
Yeah.
And you've went on all these different journeys, and you've learned, and you've experienced different people, and you've done some traveling or whatever. And you have your own opinions about the world and the way it should be or the way it is. And you think you're right, I
don't have to be right to safely express my opinion.
But you just have to be aware of who you're safely expressing your opinion to, because the person on the other end of that is a highly emotional, highly irrational, biased person that is going to be, if you say something that doesn't agree with how they see things, be ready for a fight.
So they're either going to think I'm an asshole, or they're going to behave
Correct.
like one.
Yeah. And knowing, if this is how people are, then knowing that, all right, I'm not going to engage in that kind of banter with them, because it's never going to go anywhere,
Yeah.
That's just the way you have to do it.
I have something that I like to say. We've probably brought it up before on a previous episode. When you're experiencing conflict or maybe a difference of opinion, and you don't want it to escalate to conflict.
Yeah.
There's, what is it that we say?
You might be right.
You might be right. Here's the thing about that statement. It's respectful. It's true. You might be right. It's a great way to just kind of let them have it.
Mm-hmm.
But here's another thing about this statement. I like using it because I'm actually being an asshole in that situation. Mm-hmm. And I'm just being honest. Like, I, at that point, feel like I don't want this to escalate. I don't want there to be conflict, but I kind of want to give you like a backhanded compliment right now. And that is, you might be right. And that will shut you up, because you think, not you, but whoever.
Yeah.
You think like, oh, you're agreeing with me.
Yeah.
But then also make you question, like, Are you agreeing with me? You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying?
Yeah, I mean, I use that a lot. Like people will like cut on me. I'll post like drum videos of me playing drums, and I'm not claiming to be the world's greatest drummer. I just enjoy doing it. I love to post clips. I'm hoping to inspire younger drummers to play and want to learn, and
Yeah.
And someone like said one time recently was like, "You don't deserve to have that nice of a drum set the way you play," just like kind of cutting on me, and I'm like, "You might be right."
Yeah, but here's what I'm saying about that. That is an opinion, but
Yeah.
that's also an asshole thing to say.
Well, yeah.
Those two things go together in that situation. But someone just having an opinion of like, I prefer someone who plays with a lighter hand, that doesn't make them an asshole. They just felt compelled to tell you that. And there's a difference there in
Yeah.
my mind,
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
like back to the delivery thing.
That's the whole thing, is like knowing just how the world is and the people that are in it. And, unfortunately, I mean, I wish it was different, but just the reality is that, everyone's got their own view and vantage point
and their own emotion and their own
Yeah.
traumas.
And it's
their
highly
own-
emotional why they have those opinions a
Yeah.
lot of times. And I feel like my job is to like be like some sort of like social metal detector and kind of sense. Sometimes I'm off, but like a lot of times I'm pretty on about that. Like
To sense, like,
this
vibe.
vibe's
Yeah.
off with this person. That's like gut instinct, millions of years of knowing. Like,
And then you didn't really invest in even having conversations about what your opinions are because you trusted
because it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Saving your energy for like what matters, because this is a time game and an energy game, life. And I don't want to just be arguing with people on the internet for no reason for hours just because it feels good. It's nothing. It does nothing. It doesn't move my needle of what I'm trying to do with myself.
And that is your opinion, because
That's my
there
opinion.
it might be the opinion of others that like,
That's
I
fun.
want to sit here and
Yeah.
just,
I'm
fuck
changing
with
the
people.
world, Okay.
Yeah, sure. The age old question.
Yeah. That's a good one though. It's hard to fight against that urge to want to.
Yeah. It's like, where's that line that gets crossed between having an opinion and then getting like to the point where you feel heated about being right about that opinion? If the intention is to be right or to convince someone that your opinion is right, then I don't think that's ever going to end well. But if your intention is to share your opinion to potentially like learn from each other in a respectful environment, I don't think that it has to go that far.
Yeah.
Knowing your audience, I mean, that's probably the best way to gauge.
I mean, if it helps, just to give everybody the end of the story, if you do choose to engage and argue, the ending is always not good.
Conflict, or
it's rare that
the end
people
of
are
a
like, you know what,
relationship.
I see it that way. You're right. It's usually ended in, let's not talk about this or else we can't,
Yeah, I mean, that's also subjective though, because how many times have you left an interaction where maybe you didn't see it at the time, but and this is the evolution of your own awareness and your own work that you've done, but then you've gone back and said, I didn't see it that way, but thank you for bringing that up. I mean, you've done that to me. I think we've done that for each other. Is like, I didn't recognize that maybe
that's great,
an option.
That's a great,
or that was another way to view that, and you helped me see that. So it doesn't always have to end in a negative way, but that goes back again to like, what kind of person are you from the start?
When we're talking about you and I would hope anyone listening with their spouse is, I better be aware and want to hear what you think. I better be wide open to that. Because if I can't trust you and rely on you to be some sort of a litmus test for me, as like, am I being a jerk, or is this, what do you, and if I don't believe you that you're going to give me good advice, I mean, that's the thing, is like, I have to deeply understand that like, you're looking out for my best interest. You want to help me. When we're talking about these other situations where it's acquaintances and like, I don't think what you want, but for you and I need to be tuned into that.
Well, and you also need to, you said trust, like you need to trust that I'm going to be a straight shooter,
Yeah.
straight shooter,
Yeah.
whatever. Like that I'm not just saying, I'm not just agreeing with you to agree with you. That also doesn't make my opinion invalid or make me a jerk. It just means that like you can
Yeah.
trust that I'm not just going to tell you what you want to hear
Yeah.
to avoid conflict.
And I also trust, even though you like to do your, my new favorite word is microaggressions. Your microaggressions. You might be right. You know.
Oh, is that what that is?
Well, I mean, it
that's
just,
like a
the spirit of
passive
it.
aggressive, but micro.
Well,
okay.
passive aggressive, micro. I think it's the
Micro's
same.
fun.
But we're at a place where I'm a lot more open to hearing your point of view. I believe you, and you're a lot more delicate in your, like, you're very aware of like delivery is important.
Yeah.
It used to be, here comes my message, and it's like a big freaking 50-pound hammer. Like, hear this message, it's the truth. Urgh. You know, and I'm like, that's not what I think, you know.
Yeah.
Same
like a
with
big
me.
club
Same with me.
over
You
the
know,
head.
aggression,
Yeah.
scream. You'll hear this. Let me scream and call you names. Now are you listening, right?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, like, the communication framework is there to where I'm like, and in the moment I might not be, and you might be like, hey, this isn't the right moment, but we'll come back to that. Like, those are like underneath the surface things that really help our relationship.
Well, and you said awareness, and I just think that it always comes back to that.
Yeah.
Like an awareness of your audience, an awareness of your delivery, an awareness of being respectful of other people, an awareness of being sensitive to other people. I was somewhere the other day where I overheard a conversation between two women that I'm not even sure they were friends. I think they just happened to be in the same space at the same time,
Yeah.
making small talk, and somehow landed on sharing their opinions with each other, and they agreed with each other. So there was no conflict.
Yeah.
But I was sitting quietly in the corner overhearing this conversation that they were having openly, thinking that could be extremely offensive or hurtful to me if I were on the other side of what
Yeah.
you're saying.
Yeah.
And it was not that they were trying to win. They weren't arguing. They weren't necessarily like,
Just complete ignorance.
it was just a lack of awareness.
Yeah.
And maybe lack of awareness is what makes you an asshole. Instead of like having an opinion, they were just vocalizing their opinion. That's fine. But the lack of awareness of what they were vocalizing their opinion about and the space that they were vocalizing it in was like, wow.
Yeah. What do I say? And I'm sure I have. I think back, oh my God, I can't believe I said that. You
How
know?
many times do you leave? We leave
Yes.
dinner with friends, or we like leave a business interaction, and I'm like, oh God, I wish I hadn't said that. Or I'll like catch myself saying something and be like,
Yeah.
that didn't sound the way that it should have. Or like, but at least I'm aware. I mean,
You're
I
trying,
wasn't
yeah.
aware before it came out.
Yeah.
Good thing I'm flexible, foot
Yeah.
in mouth. But like, at least I was like aware.
Yeah.
These women were not aware. And that to me was like, wow, what planet do you live on where you're just so hurtful and obtuse about what you're saying?
Yeah.
And I don't feel like that was just my perception of judging them. I feel like that was just a situational awareness was not in play, and it was offensive and hurtful.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like this is a great, example of, if you want to change the world, you got to change yourself.
Yeah, you're right.
And
You're right.
you don't realize how many people you're an example for. And so, when you make these subtle changes and these micro adjustments in the way that you approach your life, and your kids see that, and your coworkers see that, and your spouse sees that, and your family, I mean, and it just like, that's kind of how you radiate change. It's not going to be from just vocalizing opinions about stuff that are, to the receivers, like, that's not what I think, you know?
Well, I would just like to say that I'm sorry.
You might be right.
You might be right. Yes. And I'm sorry to anyone if I've ever been an asshole, and I have, and I'm sorry right now for all of those moments.
Where's the tissues?
Yeah. But my intentions, my awareness at this stage in life, and my opinion and sharing my opinion is much different than it may have been in the past. And
Yes.
that's also important to note, is that people do change. And while someone might have in the past been a little bit more aggressive or obtuse, or dare I say, an asshole, that doesn't mean that they're like that forever.
Yeah.
That people do change. They do become more in tune with what's going on around them. They do learn things behaviorally and statistically and factually and socially that impact who
Yeah.
they become or who they are. So I don't know that there's ever going to be an answer to that question about opinions and assholes and what makes you an asshole and who's the asshole. And if I know one thing, fact, if you're offended by the word asshole, this episode was not for you. I've probably said asshole
Too much.
too much. Easy. That's an opinion. It was a little bit dicey.
Yeah.
Way more in this 20, 30 minutes than I have probably said,
Yeah.
over a much longer period of time. Thank you for joining us on this journey of opinions and assholes. You can find other episodes of the Cameo Show where I don't say asshole 100 times on my website, cameoelisebraun.com, or you can go to my Instagram at cameoelisebraun or Greg's at Greg M. Braun and say hello. Tell us your opinion about this episode.
And don't be an asshole.
And do it nicely. Until next time.